Sir Robert Grant, it was a pleasure listening to you on stage today. I'm really curious, how did this journey start for you? This journey about human design, gene keys, the consciousness of humanity.
Well, you know, to me, I started noticing all these relationships, particularly in quantum physics. And I don't know if you saw, but about 2 years ago, there was a Nobel Prize that was awarded for quantum entanglement, which proved, the cover of Scientific American was the headline that basically read, "Local realism is false, and this year's Nobel Prize winners proved it." So what is local realism? Local realism says whenever you're not observing something, it doesn't hold a position in space-time. So if it doesn't hold a position in space-time, it means that it's only through our observation of things that they exist. Our observation of things. So this is very much related to something called simulation hypothesis by Nick Bostrom out of Oxford University. So when I started thinking in that way, that the universe is less about materialism and less about objectivity, and more about subjectivity and mentalism, then really it is that we are creating as an emergent universe or U-inverse around us the experience that we have, because we can't separate our observation biases from what our actual experiences are. And what happens to us is not actually what happens to us, it's what we believe happens to us. So in that context, this then says, wait a minute, this might explain why then the moon and the sun are exactly the same size in the sky. Why is that? You know, for the moon and the sun to have a perfect eclipse, we're the only planet that has a perfect eclipse. And the moon represents the feminine and the sun represents the masculine. So you got this golden orb and you've got this silver orb that rules the night. Well, when we look at it in that context, in order for it to actually be a perfect eclipse, the diameter of the sun needs to be the same proportional ratio versus the moon as the distance from Earth to the moon and Earth to the sun.
Wow.
And it is, it's exactly 400 times different. So you got an 864,000 mile diameter for the sun. You've got a 2,160 mile diameter for the moon, which is 400 times difference. And the distance between the two, between Earth and the moon, is 232,000 miles. And the distance between Earth and the sun is 93 million miles. It's 400 times.
Wow.
Wait a minute. That's such a perfect aspect ratio. It speaks to something more about our consciousness than it does only about a material universe around us. And so when that became a reality in my mind, I started realizing all these connections to mentalism, then things like zodiac and numerology, as well as it opens a whole new door into, a new portal into gene keys and, of course, human design. Human design and all of these things are connected to consciousness. And we're not just observing this universe that's already here, we're co-creating it as we go along.
Absolutely. Wow, so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So my next question for you would be, why is it important for humanity to understand their human design? There's so many people out there in the world right now that have no clue what that is.
I think human design can give you some pretty profound insights into what it is that are you still filming? Yeah. Okay. I think human design can give you some pretty profound insights into your life and your story. And Gene Keys is basically going to give that same thing, but more related to the mission of your life. So you could kind of look at human design as being about your proclivities, which things that you're going to be more likely to do. Like a Taurus, you know, is usually associated with abundance. And so I don't know that many, I'm sure they exist. I don't know that many Taurus people that are poor, for example, right? Because they tend to bring abundance into their lives. It's just the nature of how they are.
What about Libras?
Libras are all about balance, of course, right? Libras are all about balance and about aesthetic beauty. So Libras are about aesthetic beauty. So you'll have a beautifully appointed home, well organized, and that's going to be kind of the norm. That's going to be very important for you to maintain a home like that.
Do you make decisions with working with people or, you know, partnering with people based on their potential human design to have that partnership that makes sense?
I mean, I don't know that I would make that the only determining factor, because I think there's complementarity that goes into it that, you know, might have, you know, extenuating circumstances around someone that might otherwise seem like not necessarily a good fit, but actually could be a great fit for you. You know, I think it comes down to complementarity. Which things are you good at in any team, right? You have to be able to identify what you're good at and know what you're good at, and then decide what you're not good at and let other people do those things. So if you find people that love doing those things, then they're inevitably going to be good at them. right? So if you love what you do, then you're not going to work a single day of your life.
I love that. So you don't really work ever then?
No, I don't feel like I work much at all, to be honest. I mean, this year I've spent most of my year on vacation, to be honest.
That's incredible.
Like I think every month I was in a different country. I went to 26 different countries this year.
Wow. And you have an upcoming amazing experience scheduled in October of this year in Peru.
Yes, that's right.
And talk to me a little bit about that. What's that experience going to look like?
Well, I mean, my trips are called Alpha Chi Omega expeditions, and we go all around the world to ancient sites to see if we can piece together maybe some missing part of our history. And I've got some major trips coming up. I'm also doing a Netflix film very soon, and I'll be in Turkey and Menorca, going to totally new ancient sites that have just recently been discovered, some of which are the oldest in the world. One of them is called Altes Tepe, that's supposed to be older than Göbekli Tepe, which is right now recognized as the oldest megalithic site in the world, about 12,000 years old. So our human story is being recreated as we go along. And, you know, again, when you start looking at it in the terms of being able to understand that maybe it's more of a mental universe rather than an objective material universe, then it starts to change how we look at time and how we even look at history, and how history becomes moldable. You know, you could say that the past and the present determine the future because it's entangled, but then also the future can also determine the past because it's likewise entangled. And this raises new implications on what our experience actually is. And maybe what we call space-time is the accumulation, like a blockchain, of all of our emotional states that we derive based on what we believe happened to us. But then very often, sometimes something very bad can happen to us, but then we start looking back on it with time and we realize that it was actually the best thing that ever could have happened to us. And I think we all have cases like that.
I feel like the planet overall is shifting toward an awakening. That term is used a lot lately in the last decade. I guess my question would be, how can we find ways to reach people that don't believe this exists, but in our hearts we want to share this wisdom with them? We want them to see, you know, hey, you know, you have that ancient wisdom inside of you.
I think, first of all, it's just about raising awareness for people to understand that maybe the universe is not independent of them, and rather realize that the things that happen to you in your life aren't really happening to you, they're happening for and through you. And they're different aspects of yourself that you have basically created as an ego, right? Your ego is formed by all the moments and circumstances where you felt shame or guilt, and then you decided, I am not that. And so those things were separated from you. And we go around the world and start judging those things negatively until we finally realize that it's actually just an aspect of us that we've pushed out of us that wants to be recognized and accepted. We will continue to attract everything we judge until we no longer judge what we attract in our world. That you are not separate from your you inverse, that you are co-creating it at the same moment that you're experiencing. That's why people can experience the exact same circumstance and have entirely different results on how they interpolate what they experienced, right? So it's a subjective universe for us all. And when you start realizing that, then you start realizing as well that you are the master of your fate and you're the captain of your soul. Nobody else is creating your experience but you. And this is like a lens or mirror separating your reflection, which is you, and then everything that's absorbed in you becomes your shadow that then gets reflected back to you as a projection in the world around you that we call this universe.
Wow. Thank you so much, Sir Robert Grant. You are an incredible human being, and I look forward to being able to spend more time with you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.